What up, what up, what up? Welcome to another episode of NewOrleans.Basketball and NewOrleans.Network podcast. As always, I am your host, Raphael Rattler, joined by my fellow middle brother, Garrick Raphel. What's poppin' with you, bro?
What up, bro? Things all good on this side. First of all, hate having to start podcasts like this, but let's take a moment for everybody that is affected by the wildfires in LA. It feels like it's just some crazy times in the world, man. And I just want to give my heartfelt condolences to everybody that is dealing with that. The people of New Orleans, we know everything about losing things and disasters and things like that. And just want to give a shout out to everybody who's affected by that, anybody who's going through that, anybody who has anybody that's affected by that, and we all were thinking about you. And shout out to the first responders once again, always running in and taking care of the people that they serve, man. Just brave men and women doing what they can, and communities coming together. So continue to do that. Reach out to any of the places that are now helping the people around and providing aid with that, and just the well wishes to everyone dealing with that. But outside of that, man, everything's all good. And dealing with the effects of it being really, really cold in New Orleans, and not like it's like cold at like 12 and then like 2 is hot. And the thing about that is that like it's fine until like your body be like, what we doing, right? And then you got to deal with all of the foolishness that come with it, the sinuses, the nose running, everything. And then you live those days, and then you wake up one day, you find out that Zion is suspended because and it's just like, as the world turns, right? As New Orleans turns. What up, Big Pop? As the world turns in New Orleans, man. But everything's all good here, man. There was the kickoff to the Mardi Gras festival, carnival time. That's what everybody's excited. That's a big thing for us as well. Riding in Zulu and you riding in the other parades as well. So it's a good time for the city right now. Everybody's kind of turning into carnival season, which is always a special time for the people of New Orleans. But how's everything on your side, man?
Everything is blessed, man. Texas got snow, which is wild. Like real crazy snow, not like ice. So that was wild. That was crazy. College football playoffs kicking off. Shout out to our baby brother and his Ohio State competing for another national championship. I wish my school could get one, but try for one.
No.
With that one as well. The Saints season is over. Thank God. So we're on to the next league. We're on to the next phase of that, looking for a coach there. But you're absolutely right. The Pelicans are looking more and more like an NBA basketball team. To your point, the drama has never really ended. I'll tell you one thing. If the Pelicans are anything, they're not boring. For a team that has the most losses in the NBA, they are not a boring team at all. If you want any type of entertainment on or off the court, tune into the Pelicans for that. But we will jump into that and everything that entails in just a second. Before we do that, make sure you guys are following us on X, on Twitter, on IG, on TikTok. That's NO_basketball, no E. Make sure you like the episode below, and make sure if you're not already, subscribe to the channel, NewOrleans.Basketball. So let's start with the positives. The Pelicans are 3-4 so far in January, which means they have 3 times as many wins as that they had in December. So shout out to the Pelicans for the positives, and that's probably where the positives is. They are 8-32 with 1 game before the halfway mark in the season. It's not looking good for the Pelicans' playoffs hopes, but they are playing much better. It just so happened to coincide with the fact that their best players are all getting on the court. All of a sudden, you're not looking at Willie Green every game like, why are you losing? You're looking at these games like, hey, if you had this person, if you won this possession, if you didn't turn the ball over here, you had a chance to win. And so we won't recap the games too much. Again, the Minnesota game and the Celtics game, you're playing against teams that were both in the Eastern and Western Conference Finals, Celtics obviously being the champions, and you lose in those games. And we talk about there's no moral victories in the NBA, but there's a difference in how you lose, right? In the Minnesota game, you come out, Zion returns, Zion and Ant are going at it. In the Celtics game, the Pelicans are hunting the Celtics on the other end and look like the more athletic team, and you lose at the end to probably a more prominent team. And then the games in between, you win versus 76ers, they're not playing anything. The Blazers game was pathetic. effort by all the core. So it's not necessarily the losses at this point. Again, we've talked about it on this podcast. You have to redefine how you're watching this season as a Pelicans, a connoisseur. You have to look for the development traits because the likelihood that they make up this huge gap and make it into the play-ins and the playoffs is unlikely from that standpoint. But the thing that we have to talk about, regardless of the game, regardless of the records and how we've gotten to this point, is the development of Trey Murphy. So Zion comes back. We'll get to him and all that entails. Zion comes back. The first time Trey – yeah, we're about to be halfway through the season. The first time you see Trey Murphy on the court with Dejounte Murray and Zion is game 13 now. Like, that not be the case in a team that has so much problems going in, but here we are. But this man comes out with another 30-point game. He's got 3 of those in the last 6 games. So how impressed with you have you been with Trey Murphy and his development? Because really, he's been the silver lining of the season.
Yeah. I mean, he has. I would say he and Eves' start to the season, and it kind of keeping the same kind of things that Florida obviously hasn't had the great games like he had before. But I think he and Trey Murphy are the silver lining. I think when you look at Trey Murphy, you think about the games that we just saw, right? Like you talked about being competitive in more games. You talked about how you lose these games. I think this past, since Zion has gotten back, like you want to talk about, like you said, the Minnesota game on. I think because we talk about the Pelicans. If you've been watching this podcast, you know that my favorite word to use the Pelicans is unique. They've been unique since the moment Zion, since the moment the Pelicans got the number 1 pick in the draft. They've been unique since then, right? Not too many times you see teams, have a superstar on the team and then also have the number 1 pick coming. Very rarely do you see teams that have the number 1 pick and then trade the other superstar away and then get all of the incoming stuff to go around the number 1 pick in the draft. Is not very it's just a lot of unique things. Zion is a unique body in and of itself. Just a lot of uniqueness to the Pelicans. And again, since that Minnesota game, this team has fallen right into it again, right? This is not your typical 8-36 team, right? This is not the Blazers or the Wizards where you're like, who's on that roster? Oh, I see why they are 8-36, right? This is more of a circumstantial 8-36. And so they're a very unique team going into that way, right? And then you talk about the way these teams, these last couple games, and it makes you think about all of the times that you're on social media and all the times you hear people talk about, well, the Pelicans need to do this or they need to fire this person or clear out. This is what, and AD brought it up, this is what makes those conversations so different and, again, unique. Because when this team gets some of the players together on the floor and you look and you say, well, damn, this team does have Zion and CJ McCollum and Dejounte Murray and Trey Murphy, and before Herb got injured, Herb, like, this is some really good talent around this team, right? And I haven't even talked about Jordan Hawkins and Yves Missi and those guys. And you're like, well, that's a really good collection of talent together. And then, you hear, oh, Zion needs to be traded and going right. And then you watch him play, you're like, and you watch him on both sides of the play, he's like, I see why they don't really want to let him go. Again, just a unique situation. And so this brings me to Trey Murphy, right? How many teams in the league have a young wing with the abilities that Trey Murphy has, and his development is like story 5 on the team, right? Like story 5 or story 6, right? Because you have so many other players with so many other things going on. And Trey Murphy's development has been one of the most, like, if you follow the Pelicans, it's a huge, huge thing, right? And again, the Pelicans are in obscurity right now because of the wins and losses. But where this guy was last season and the season before that, and what you were begging and hoping that he would come into the season, he has, like, surpassed that. And it was very important for me to see it with Zion also on the floor. I was waiting to see it because it's one thing to have that predatory wing offense fed to you. It's another thing that you have a guy who's like the franchise guy and running the offense through him, and you still find a way to be effective. And we saw it in the Celtics game where Trey was like the most athletic person on the floor at points. And this is against Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum, and Zion was out there, but his ability to be athletic has not waned in his ability in his development when he's growing and trying to learn how to put the ball on the floor and things like that. So you got this shooter who is crazy athletic, who is now learning to be the number one option, but then also now is learning to fit in next to Zion and with Dejounte. And you're seeing all the things that that you want to see from a second option, a third option, like a really effective guy in that sense. And I just, Trey is the modern day NBA player. He just is. He is in every sense of the way. And now that he's so comfortable putting on the ball on the ground, that Enigma title that I call him has just gotten even way more, because I said it last podcast. He is now more or just as dangerous and effective after 2 dribbles as he is at catch and shoot. And this is crazy talking about Trey Murphy, right? One of the best shooters in the league. So his ability to just take on, so much responsibility on the floor and learn from it and continue to grow in it. And then also to apply it when Zion gets back and Dejounte is out there. You got a semblance of a real like competitive team on the floor. He still stood out. And I think the one thing that I'm super, super looking forward to when this team can get together and get some runs together is his ability to draw fouls. He is going to get the Pelicans in he is, if not, he's probably the best foul drawer on the team. And
there's a guy wearing number 1 that probably
he doesn't get foul called. He does not get foul called.
You're right.
They do not foul call. You cannot. It's when I say foul drawer, I mean called foul, because he has learned to put the ball in front of him when he's going to those drives and he's reaching them out and people are fouling him, and he's learned that. Zion does get fouled a lot, but he very rarely, as you can tell from his responses and his very demonstrative personality, that no, he doesn't get those foul calls. Trey Murphy gets those foul calls, and what that's going to do is that when he does play these heavy minutes with Zion and, hopefully with Brandon Ingram can get back on the floor, it's a different story. He's going to get those guys into, get the team into, the penalty early. And you saw against the Celtics, he drew like 3 fouls back to back to back. And I was like, wait till Zion gets back on the floor, because you got to deal with him as well. And I think that is going to be something that is so important for the Pelicans when he gets there, because we've been begging Brandon Ingram to not play the game the right way, as famously as Brandon Ingram calls it. But Trey is learning that. He's learning the tricks of the trade of drawing fouls and things like that, and that's going to be important. So his development this season has been one of the more underrated stories because of where the Pelicans are in the standings. But if you follow this team and you follow Trey Murphy's career from Rice up until now, the person he was, the player that he was at that point, and the player that he is now, night and day.
You're absolutely right. I think the thing that stands out to me the most through it all, you touched on his handle, right? We talked about that in a previous pod. It's night and day from last season. Like last year, you were just hoping that Trey Murphy could figure out a way to attack a closeout and get to the midi or get to the rim or what now. Now you kind of want to throw him at the top of the key and call the pick and roll for him. And that's crazy that we're saying that. Like we had a preseason pod about this team. And we talked about what's the ideal spot for Trey. Neither of us said that he needs to be able to create for himself. He just needs to be capitalized on the catch and shoot and get better in that area. Well, now he looks, I'm not even going to say okay or better. He looks good. creating for himself, and not just for himself, but for other people as well. Like, he's a good 6'9", 6'10", and his stop ability, and you mentioned his ability to create crafty fouls like we talk about with DeMar DeRozan and things you would like Brandon Ingram to add to his game to get to the free throw line outside of just being more physical than the other person, finding different veteran ways to get there. He's already doing that, right? Like, he's already getting to the lane and coming up with a floater because there's already someone at the rim. Like, he's already bringing those counters to the game that you've been looking for from Brandon Ingram and Zion in some areas as well. And so the growth for him, and I see it in the comments a little bit, and I actually had a conversation earlier today with it about the frustrating part about this team. Like, you watch that game for the Celtics and you're like, man, if Brandon Ingram's out there, or Herb Jones, just another wing type body, what does that look like when the Celtics go to their bench? But the other thing about it is, like, okay, the Pelicans are in a prime spot to get one of these great draft picks that are coming out. We went through it like, okay, well, let's say you get Cooper Flagg. Well, now at this point in the season, you look at Yves Missi and say that's a different position than Cooper Flagg. So Yves is probably still the starting center. You're not taking Zion out the starting lineup. You're not taking Dejounte Murray out the starting lineup. If Brandon Ingram's still on the team, you're not taking him out. So then we got to the conversation. So is Cooper Flagg starting over Trey Murphy? And I say, hell no. So, like, you get to that point, you're like,
Herb Jones.
Yeah, and so you get to that point like, damn, this team has so much talent. It's ridiculous that they've never been able to get there. But the ascension in Trey's game is so big, not just for this season and what it may manifest to, but the option it gives the Pelicans moving forward. We talked about before, like, I don't know if Trey's ever going to be a 1 or 2 option, so to speak, but, like, he's showing you that he can be on a given game. Like, he played on the same game as Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown, and Zion Williamson, and he was the most efficient 30-point scorer on the night. And so, like, that is a different spot to operate in as you finish the rest of this season, you go into the offseason, knowing that next leap for the guy that you just paid money to has been taken, and then probably then some thereafter. And so, again, watching Trey's development, how he grows on an individual level, but also next to Zion and Dejounte Murray through the back half of the season is extremely important. But we talk about Dejounte Murray, and we talked a last episode about the uphill battles that this team is facing, because every game they walk in without 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 of their best players. But also, once their best players got on the court, it took them a while to get in rhythm for themselves, but then it took them a while to look like they've been playing together, because most of them have not been through even the training camp and things like that. But over the last, I don't know, week or so, and maybe a week or more, Dejounte Murray is starting to look a lot more like Dejounte Murray. And so my question to you is, how big is it for him to get into a rhythm and to learn his teammates? Because over these last couple of games or so, and this is crazy to say considering Brandon Ingram hasn't been on the court, this is like the most cohesive the Pelicans offense has looked like maybe in the Zion tenure. Like, there's been moments when Brandon Ingram go off individually, but like the way the ball's moving, the way people are finding people in the pocket, the way the pass is being anticipated from everyone has a lot to do with Dejounte Murray. So tell me what you've seen from him over the past week.
Yeah, Dejounte and Zion already seem like they are a hand in glove fit. Like, now that Dejounte is starting to get back to the Dejounte that we saw last year in Atlanta and obviously in his career, and Zion is back in better spirits and better conditions, they just have a natural chemistry because of their position, because of how Zion plays, because of how unselfish both of those guys are. And honestly, because of how positionally, like, athletic, like, those guys are for their positions, right? Like, Dejounte is a point guard, but I mean, this guy has long arms, and he's going for steals and going for blocks, and he's an athletic kind of guy who wants to get up and down and run at 6'5", right? Like, he's a guy who's on the floor, a tall guy on the floor, and so he can already get into spots. Again, as a crafty guy, he can already get into spots, but he got that point guard. He's always looking to make the pass. There was a couple of passes in against the Celtics where Dejounte and Zion, they look like they had been playing for a long time, right? Like, just finding each other, Zion finding him and finding CJ and Dejounte finding guys. Like this looked like a team that you're like, okay, this is what the vision of it looked like with Dejounte at the helm. And so you haven't even seen, like you talk about the game 37, you haven't even seen B.I., Zion, Dejounte, and Trey on the floor. Like, not to mention with CJ and when he got it rolling, that's just another option, another weapon. Dejounte and CJ have a little bit of chemistry going on as well. Like he just seems to have natural or organic chemistry with the guys on the floor because they fit his play style. They fit the type of point guard that you're looking for, right? You have Trey flying out. Dejounte is finding Trey for open threes in transition and in the half court. You have CJ running behind screens with Zion and relocating just a step down the baseline. Like that's not, those are plays, but that's basketball feel where Dejounte is hitting him between a pass between Zion and a defender, that little bit of spot, a little bit of space that CJ relocates down towards the baseline. Boom. That's not us talk. That's not plays. That's just us knowing, playing off of each other, being instinctive. And I think that's what you wanted to see out of a Dejounte Murray-led offense. And that's what you brought him in for. And you're seeing it as guys start to come along. It's very hard, and I tweeted about it that, Dejounte did not have a great start to the season when he got back. But again, it's difficult to deal with the things that he dealt with, obviously, with his life situation, his hand, but then also trying to get back into basketball shape with, Jamal Cain right next to you. Like it's very difficult to win like that, right? And so now that the talent is getting back on the floor, you see the value that Dejounte brings. And listen, when you talk about all the offensive chemistry that he and Zion have, and he and CJ have, and obviously the lives to Eves. But man, when him and Herb were on the floor together, they had defensive chemistry, right? You saw stocks everywhere, right? Stocks every which way, from every which place. And I think that is the ideal for Dejounte, having chemistry, a little chemistry with Zion here. So I know how to play with him. I know how to get CJ open and get the ball to him. I know how to get Trey. And then on the other side, I got my chemistry with Eves, and I can feed the driver into Eves because I know he's behind me. And me and Herb are playing at the helm on the, at the front lines of the defense. And that is the team that you wanted to see. And you're seeing a little bit of it. And to be honest with you, the thing I'm most excited with Dejounte is how invigorated Zion gets playing with Dejounte when they get into these positions where they're, getting those steals out, trapping at the half court line. And Zion is one of the, people don't talk about it, one of the best at like making that defensive read, going in there with hands. And he and Dejounte do that very well. You've seen obviously the Zion 360 dunk, but they do it a lot. And he and Zion kind of have that kind of no-speak chemistry as well on the defensive side of the ball, where I'm going to trap this guy because I know Zion is going to come, get the steal, and we out. And you see how after he dunks and everything, how Dejounte is empowering him and celebrating him and holding him accountable in times as well. So I think this is the Dejounte Murray that you traded for. And listen, if this team, again, if this team could ever just get 90%, I have officially given up on like them getting 100% everyone. Well, obviously, Herb
with the shoulder, yeah. So that's dead. Yeah.
So at least 90%. I want to see Dejounte with an entire repertoire of offensive weapons throughout the entire game, and watch how he plays with those guys. But I mean, Dejounte, getting back to Dejounte, is really something that the Pelicans wanted to see. Even if this is a lost season, you wanted to get some questions answered. And one of them was, how was Dejounte at the head of this team? And you're starting to get some answers as everybody gets back and as Dejounte gets healthier.
Yeah, a couple of things that you touched on there. Before the season started, Dejounte came out and said, I want to lead the league in assists. And like, you came out thinking like, man, the ball's going to be in Brandon Ingram's hands. The ball's going to be in CJ McCollum's hands. There's no way. Over his last 5 games, triple-double versus Washington, 29 points and 6 steals versus Minnesota, 20 points and 5 assists, 17, 10, and 6 last night versus the Celtics, 26, 9, and 8, right? Again, The whole idea of Dejounte, to your point on the defensive end, was to give you another athletic guy that can help you get in transition. And to your point, him and Zion might be at the tops of the scale when it comes to off-ball defenders. Like, they just read the floor very well when the ball handler is not paying attention to them. And even though Herb went down, you're seeing him draw that out of Zion as well. He came out in the interview after the game, and he was like, hey, Zion called me up and was like, hey, defense is something I want to be better at. And that's something that made me smile because that's something I hold true. The same way, this is crazy that we're saying this like 3 years later. The same way that CJ was brought in here, not just for his on-court abilities and what he would do next to Brandon Ingram and Zion, but what he was able to bring to the locker room from a leadership perspective, from a maturity perspective, from a professional standpoint, and kind of filter that into the young players. I think Dejounte's need for that is obvious as well. And it's just in a different way, right? You see how he fits both offensively and defensively on the court, but off the court, how many years have we talked about not just this being the quietest locker room, but that the Pelicans are a bunch of like super nice guys, like super friendly guys that don't necessarily push
mindfulness, joy in a practice facility,
like push the envelope too much. And I think Dejounte has a little bit of that nasty streak in him that's gonna pull it out of Zion. You saw Zion getting an ass, like that's good for the NBA. Like that's good for the team.
I'm not gonna lie, that clip that went around of Zion saying, I got something for it's finished this. I was like, yes, that is what we need. Can we get that in a practice facility instead of mindfulness and joy? Can we get I got something for his BA on the practice facility on LI? Let's put that in there. Let's
exactly, right? And so you talk about, what he does there, but from an accountability standpoint, it's much easier to have, a coach or a boss or a parent or someone like that tell you, hey, yo, this is how you got to do it. This is how, and it's like, yeah, I got it. It's much different when it's like a peer or an older brother who's living the life as you, who's been there before, who's been professional. It's like, yo, bro, that's not going to cut it. Like, you are here for a reason. You're impacting my pockets. You're impacting the fan who came here to see you and then not seeing you. That's a different level of accountability that I'm not sure even CJ McCollum brings. Like, CJ McCollum seems like the lead by example type. You need some vocal people in this locker room. Like, you need some people who are going to vocally be upset in the locker room when someone's not doing something, right? There's too much of the niceness. And I think that element's come in this game. You talked about, what he's been dealing with the hand and, from a personal standpoint. The third thing about it is like, not just like the talent on the court with you, but the cohesiveness and the chemistry as a point guard. If you don't know where someone's going to be, and you even saw it in the Celtics game where it's 3-on-2 fast break and you think someone's flaring to the corner and instead they pull back for a pull-up three. And it's like that kind of stuff comes with repetition and with at-bats. And so with a player like Dejounte Murray, he's both trying to get into a rhythm, but also figuring out, okay, how do I get the most out of every person? But how do I also get mine? One of the biggest things from Dejounte's game that I thought was vital for this team going into this year before, shit hit the fan was his ability to get downhill. Like when Brandon Ingram is not in or Zion's not in, and it's been a lot of that so far this season, you've seen that element from Trey attacking with power and using the God-given abilities he has at 6'10" and the ability to be in the dunk contest. But outside of him, you lost to Najee Marshall, who could create his own offense. And you didn't really gain that back. Brandon Boston to a degree, but you didn't get that downhill penetration that makes your paint to great a successful offense. Dejounte wasn't doing that out of the gate. So you could say he was trying to, get comfortable and fit in with the team. And the last week or so, you see him being more aggressive. You see him being the one that initiates the offense or to create for himself or with someone else. And so with all of that put together, it's not, again, it's one of those things where you've got enough history and he's a young enough player where eventually he was going to get into a rhythm, and you're starting to see that play out altogether. So I'm interested to see this back half of the season. How good of a chemistry or orchestra can they put together, and what adjustments and tweaks do you need to make from there? So talk about adjustments and tweaks, and this is one we need to talk about. So the Zion saga continues. He comes back, puts on a show versus Minnesota, falls just short, versus Anthony Davis, or excuse me, versus Anthony Edwards. And then right afterwards, you find out that he is suspended for the game in Philip because he did not make the flight. Here's the issue. My son is 6 years old. He's starting to get into basketball and understand and be enjoying it. He walked in before the game and asked me, Daddy, is Zion playing? My answer to him was, no, son. Well, is he hurt? No, son. Why is he not playing? Because he was late for the flight to get on the plane to go to the game. My 6-year-old son began to say, well, isn't that his job? That is a wild thing to say from a 6-year-old, right?
Shout out to Juju, man.
My question to you is like, we'll get to the on-court stuff. We've seen this offseason. You've seen how he's come back. Like, he's come back ready to play basketball. But, like, what do you make of the situation, right? Like, he's owned up to it. The Pelicans owned up to it. Dejounte talked about it. Seems like they moved past it. But in year 6, where you haven't played but like 10 games all season long, you are late to the flight. What are your thoughts on that?
I said this. First of all, shout out to Juju. That's a great question. And also, yes, Juju, it is his job. Yeah, man, listen, that just can't be normal, man. I woke up that day and I was like, listen, let's just have a normal day. And when I saw it, I was like, wait, what do you mean he was late for the plane? Wait, what do you mean he was late for the plane? Wait, he's Zion. First of all, if he is driving, how do you, whatever. That is an issue. And this is the part, again, unique, because who else, show me a time, any other time, right, where a team has suspended its star because of, like, they've missed a flight. Like, we're talking about a team that is last in the league, last whatever, in the top 3 in the lottery pick, that has a problem getting people to come to games this season. Yet they suspended their best player. That lets you know that it is a problem, because that is not something that a team that is losing or a team that is trying to get people to come to the games based on, and I think that's part of the reason why they're not on the road and not when we get home.
Away game, yeah.
And you suspended him. That lets you know just how bad of an issue it is. And listen, Zion said all the right things. David Griffin said all the right things. The public-facing stuff, as they're supposed to. But this is an issue. It is. I agree. I think Juju has a good. I agree, guys. Juju has a good eye for what people should be doing. It's an issue. It is a problem. And you know, Zion always talks about, wanting to be great, right? He talked about LeBron having a blueprint. This is not that. This is not how you walk in those steps. This is not how you walk in the steps of greatness. It just isn't. You have an obligation to your team, to your franchise, to your teammates, to the fans. When you have an entire offseason, and listen, I'm never the person to say basketball players should just robotically play basketball and not have other aspects of life, not go through emotional things that regular people go through. I'm all for that. Like, these are human beings, but you are paid a lot of money to do a certain job in a certain span of time. You don't have to worry about going into March and April and May and June with this season. You know when your schedule ends, right? This is a season where you are very aware when your schedule ends. In that particular span of time, you have an obligation to the team, to your teammates, to the fans, to the city, to everyone. And the best players take that personally. LeBron is at every game. He knows that he has to play in every game, because you may not, somebody in Philadelphia saved up a lot of money to bring their child to see you play, and you can't play because you are irresponsible and being immature. That is not the path to greatness. That is not how LeBron approached it. That is not how Steph approached things. That is not how Michael Jordan approached it. All the people that he talks about, wanting to be great as, those players did not deal with these kind of things. They have their own issues and own things, but when it comes to being responsible, they make sure they show up. And we are in year 6. We've talked about maybe it's the fatherhood will grow him up. Maybe it's bringing CJ McCollum will grow him up. Maybe Dejounte could come here and grow him up. And all of those things are well, right? All of those things are factors that get your life going. Now, if it comes out that he was late for the flight because his baby had an issue or something like that, then you revisit that and revisit that and deal with that. But something tells me the Pelicans know, and this has not just been, it's been reported that this is not just a one-off thing. You missed the flight, you're suspended. It's a culmination of everything, and a lot of offenses. And if you are honest, it doesn't matter if it's New Orleans. And this is my thing about people saying that like he needs to go in fresh new scenery. It doesn't matter if you are New Orleans or if you in New York. That kind of outlook and not taking your job seriously is something that you have as a person. It doesn't matter where you are. And that has to change for Zion to step in and be the franchise leader, the way the Pelicans need him, the way his talent shows that he needs to be. Because this is why I kept saying this, is because we're not talking about Eddie Curry when he steps on the floor. We're not talking about Anthony Bennett. He's healthy. All right, let's roll him out there. He got 5 points and 3 rebounds, and that's it. This is a game-changing one of them ones. You can say what you want about Zion. You can say, that he's this, that, and the other. He is one of them ones when he is on the floor. And it's time for him to understand that and mentally accept that and understand that, again, heavy is the head that wears the crown. You want to be paid as a max player. You want to be the franchise guy. You want to walk in the blueprint of LeBron James. This is what it entails. And when you fail and you're irresponsible about it, this is what happens. And it just cannot go on anymore. So I think, this is a good the Pelicans are damned. David Griffin is damned if you do, damned if you don't. If you don't suspend them, then you're just letting the inmates run the asylum. If you do suspend them, you're doing it with no stakes, and this is a lost season anyway, so who cares if you suspend them? You're damned if you do, damned if you don't. But I applaud the franchise saying, listen, this is unacceptable. Damn the record, damn the season. We're gonna do this now because this is not how we can have our franchise player doing. And so I'm glad that they did it. I'm glad that they drew a line in the sand and stuck to it. Where it comes from, it's all about how you shake back. And if this is something that we revisit in a month or whatever, and God help the health and knock on wood, everybody stays healthy. And he's healthy, but then you hear, he's late to practice or late to whatever, then you know that this is something that you have to address in the offseason and get it done. But hopefully this is something that this is a learning experience, another learning experience from Zion. And he understands that heavy is the head that wear the crown. And so he has to be that and be more honorable and be more respectful and be more committed to the person, the talent that is Zion Williamson and the team that is the New Orleans Pelicans.
Here's my question. New Orleans is a very small, big city, right? You can get from one end to the other very quickly. People saying that he doesn't want to be there and he just needs to get to a different vibe. Could you imagine if Zion Williamson was playing for the New York Knicks and was late to the plane and the Knicks suspended him? He would hear it from China to it would be on CNN that Zion missed the game. It would only get worse.
You think Stephen A. Smith and Shannon Sharp are bad? Nah, wait. What if he had went to the Knicks?
It would only get worse. And so at this point, he needs to grow up before it's too late. That's what it breaks down to, right? We've talked about it. The fact that he has this skill and this ability, and you mentioned like follow the footprints of LeBron and things like that. LeBron is Steph onto a different category, like greats of greats. We all know that. Here's the business side of that. LeBron and Steph impact economies. You go to a city and all of a sudden people fly to see you in that city. Like you help the small bit. New Orleans is built a bunch of small businesses. You help everyone. And so really, it's not just what you're doing for the team, the Pelicans, it's what you're doing for the cities and the cities that you go to, right? And so to your point, heavy is the head that wears the crowd. Absolutely. But when you have that type of talent, there's a reason why ESPN hasn't given up on him in year 6. There's a reason why the Pelicans haven't could you imagine if you were owner of a business and your best employee was sometimes there and sometimes not, but they're by far your best employee, right? You're going to give it every shot to make it work because you don't see another way to replace that employee. And especially in a small market, small business like the Pelicans, you're going to give every shot possible to make it work. But at some point, the time is starting to run out, right? And to your point, I think the Pelicans have been a little hesitant in the past to hold him accountable because it's like, okay, well, we pissed off AD and he left. Chris Paul and he left. You piss off Zion and he leaves. What are you left with? But now we just talked about. But now you got a Trey Murphy, and now you got a Brandon Ingram, and now you got a CJ, and you got a Jordan Hall. Now you have all the pieces, and so if you can't make it work as the star, it's an indicator on you, not on what the organization have pulled around him. And so now, yes, they are holding him accountable, but I want to see it go further, right? Like. I want to see it to the utmost level that anytime he's not acting like the leader that you need him to be, you call him out for it, and his teammates do it too. Now, that's the off-court stuff. On the court, we talked about this in our last pod. I didn't want to see Zion come out and just be Zion and run through people and go to the foul line and fall down and stuff like that. I wanted him to show what he was showing at the beginning of the season, what he was showing at the end of last season, the report you heard all offseason. And Garrett, this is the Zion people have been waiting for. The guy who is I've said it from the very beginning. He has every single attribute that it takes. If you had a 2K list and it's a A+ perimeter defense, speed, vertical, he has it all. He has every attribute to be not a average defender, an impactful defender. And you saw that in displays versus both the Minnesota and versus Boston. Like he has the ability to again, you're not going to replace a Herb Jones, but he has the ability to make a similar impact in the way that he's able to defend. We've talked about all season, this team feels small. Well, Zion's not a small guy. And so for those matchups like Jaylen Brown and things like Jaylen Brown was in fisticuffs. Like he was not powering through Zion. That's what you need from him. And on the offensive side, yeah, he shot that 3 at the end of the game that probably was ill-advised, but at least he shot it. And at least he shot the jumper. When they came and when Celtics came and collapsed on him, he shot the floater. Like he's using the counters that you've been looking for 4 and 5 and 6 years now. This is the Zion that everybody's been waiting for. So what have you seen from Zion as we wrap this up on the court since he's returned?
Hey, I actually like the shot. I listen, depending on what glasses you're wearing, again, I've told everybody, if you haven't taken off your playoff glasses and put on your development glasses while watching the Pelicans, you're in for a very long season because there's still 40 games of this. But if you're watching it from the development side, then you say that is the crunch time game on the line. Like sometimes he missed you. It's a make or miss league, but damn it, he shot it right. He shot the shot instead of going to what he knows. He shot the shot that everybody wants him to shoot. I'm comfortable if I go up to him and say, look, big fella, shoot it. Like, keep shooting that. Like that's something I want you to be comfortable shooting. Live with the results, right? If he makes it, we having a whole different conversation about Zion Williamson today, but he missed it. So I'm not going to hold him, to that, especially when the team probably better. This is the kind of result that you really do want it depending on how you're watching the Pelicans, like really competitive. CJ had moments, Dejounte had moments, Trey was cooking, Zion did his thing. There was some good scripted plays, there was some good defense, and then you lose at the end. Like that is it, depending on how you're watching it. That's probably, but for Zion's kids, I want him to be comfortable taking those shots, because those are the things that's going to make him a better player and make him a more confident player, and not just go back into that shell where, you miss a couple and now everybody's all on you. So you're saying, to hell with it. Let's go straight to the rim. That's what makes him great. That's where his money is made, his bread is butter, whatever you want to call it. But I think, you wanted to see a little bit more of a diverse offense. I wanted to see the conditioning. And damn it, he answered my question, because he has been all over the place defensively, expending a lot of energy going for steals, trying to get in those passing lanes, doing the trapping at half court. He has done a lot. And I am super pleased with that. And I think, obviously the statement is that Zion comes back and everybody plays better. But I don't think people understand just how much he helps everybody lock into positions where they feel comfortable. Trey's shots, as great, as incredible as he is, when you the number one option, there's a lot of weight on those shots. There's a lot of weight on CJ McCollum shots. There are a lot of weight on Dejounte Murray shots, where if you're missing and you got a bad night, man, the Pelicans have no shot. When Zion is on the floor, nobody feels that weight anymore. It feels like, okay, these shots, I can take these shots with a lot more comfort and relaxation, because if we need to, one got us. One can go get us a bucket, one can set us up, one can get us in transition, one can impose his will, whatever the case is. And so everybody's more locked into a more comfortable position, let alone the gravity. And I bet you Trey Murphy is about his hat, because some of them shots Trey Murphy shooting now, they are wide open, because they AD and Joel was talking about it on the broadcast, was talking about, you could hear Joe Mazzulla saying tilt every time Zion gets the ball, meaning tilt the floor to him. Well, when you tilt the floor to him, you're tilting the floor away from Trey Murphy, from CJ McCollum, and so those are the things that he does on the floor for the other guys around. And then defensively, those is very similar to what Eves has brought to the team, where guys feel more empowered to press up and go for steals and go and play more aggressively, because if you get past me, at least I know Eves is there. You got to try to play, you got to try to score over him. Whereas last season you had JV there, right? Zion is a very similar way when he's out there, because these guys know that they can go and trap at half court line, because if he turns around, Zion is going to be there helping. They know that if you get past me and Zion is on the floor, Zion is a damn good help side block artist too, the same way Eves is. And so now I have another guy back there to do that. And so he empowers even the defensive side of the ball. And that's what I mean by one of one, right? One of them ones. There are really good guys in the league, who can score, or guys who can defend. There are not a lot of guys who can command the entire floor on both sides of the floor the way Zion can. And that is why you give him so many opportunities and give him so many things, because it's just very. I see people talking about the Giants and the Giants having a similar thing with Lawrence Taylor at home games. Guess what? Lawrence Taylor played every snap for the Giants too. They did the cocaine. We don't see it. We don't see it. You know what I'm saying? We don't forget, because he was one of them ones. And Zion is the same way. And so I think if this is the Zion, the development of Zion has also become something that has taken a backseat because of everything going on with the Pelicans. Not with him being a major part of it. But he's also still developing, right? He's also still coming into. It's weird to say that about a max contract guy, a number one pick, but there are things that he's adding to his game in year 6 that you're like, oh, okay, that's something that he has. And you don't really talk about Zion's development, because it's always, he's not on the flight. He's hurt. Is he fat? Is he this? Is he that? but it's never the okay, what else has he added? What else has he brought to the team? He used to be a terrible defender. Now he's not a terrible defender. And like nobody ever talks about it. It's just, he fat, he missing, those are things that he has added, that he has committed to the team. And it's part of the reason why you get so frustrated when he does things like miss the team playing, because he has, like you said, all of the tools. They're all there on both sides of the floor and in the mind. He's a maestro passing the ball and things. And so that is why the crown is heavy, because it is a crown. You have it. You just have to apply it, continue to develop, and be more serious about it, and take it more, and be more pro about it. And the sky is the limit for Zion. And when he gets on the floor, the Pelicans just look like a totally different team. And that's obviously cliche to say, but I mean, they just play different. They have a different belief. They look faster. They look like a good NBA team when Zion's on the floor. So, I've been excited about what I've seen from Z. I want to see this continue. He needs to play in as many games possible. Be on time for the flights, bro. Like, just stay healthy and be there, and give this team an opportunity to give themselves an evaluation of you, an evaluation of all of this talent around you, and then move forward from there.
Garrick, Zion Williamson was 5 for 15 last night. The Pelicans were maybe like 3 inches away from going to Boston without their second best player, without their first team all defensive player, with a fully healthy Celtics roster, and beating them on their court. Zion went 5 for 15. You talk about how the team is different when he's on there, because the space he creates makes everyone easy for anyone. If you played sport at any level, middle school, pee-wee, high school, college, professional, whatever, you always feel more confident when your best player is on there. You feel like we have a chance to win every time and I think a lot of these bad games the Pelicans have had, including the Blazers game where they didn't have Trey, B.I., or Zion, it's because they went into it like, we're probably not going to win because we don't have and you could see it visibly in their play. Whereas every time Zion's on the court, you always feel like we have a chance, right? That you talk about heavy, that you are controlling how people, and again, right or wrong, this might not be a good thing because you have a very young roster. It shouldn't be that way. Look at Orlando. Look at some of these other teams winning out with their best player. But you have a young roster. And so naturally they think in young ways. And so if you just being there helps them play better outside of what you do on the court, that should be your number one goal no matter what. And so you're absolutely right. He's showing everything you wanted him to show on the court so far. Now he's got to stay that way. With that being said, that's all we got left for you. The halfway point is after tomorrow's game versus the Bulls. Who knows what happens in the back-to-back after that, but what you got left for the people, Garrick?
As always, you never know what people are going through, so give someone a smile today. I'm very interested to see, at what point do we get Brandon Ingram back? It seems as though, Trey Murphy sprained his ankle twice and has been back before BI. So just very interesting things going on there. So hopefully, he gets back soon and you get to see, even more firepower added to this team, because again, Brandon Ingram is an excellent player and I want to see him added to this team, to this Trey Murphy, to this Zion, to this Dejounte, and see what he can bring. So Pels have back-to-back starting tomorrow. Should be interesting. We'll see what goes on. With who's available and who's not. So hopefully people making the flights everywhere and we don't have to worry about anything like that, but it's the Pelicans, so I'm sure something will go on. As always, follow myself at Garrick_Rattler. Follow my brother at Raphael_Rattler. Follow the page at NO_Basketball, no E. That's on Twitter, Instagram, wherever you get your social media. Appreciate everybody coming through, man, and seeing y'all in the comments. Josh, I'm a big fan of your work, man, with the St. Aug, so I know what you do. I watch all your videos. Shout out to you. But appreciate everybody coming through. We'll see you guys in the next one.
Hey,